Hello and welcome to the Chris and Bud Show. My name is Chris Scarborough, and with me is my co-host, my friend, and my brother in pod, Mr. Bud Bohannon. Together, we'll be taking you on a nostalgic ride discussing a wide array of topics from our childhood through today, hoping to share a bunch of laughs along the way.
Yeah, you know what time it is. It's time.
No, not yet.
Can I go now?
Yeah, now.
It's time for the Chris and Bud Show.
Welcome back. Today, we're going to be having some fun. We thought about being more like an Apple versus Android, but it kind of expands past that. But basically, what we're going to be talking about today is basically the phones that we've owned, or more so, the phones that Bud has owned. Uh,
I
have
got an
a much smaller
assortment pulled
career.
up.
Yeah, I had a much smaller, I guess, variety of phones. I guess I'm not really sure how to explain it any better than that. So, without further ado, we're just gonna run right into it. I'm gonna let Bud lead off. Go for it, Bud.
Well, the thing about this is, like Chris said, we were just thinking about doing Apple versus Android only, but that would probably be about a 15-minute podcast. So I dug a little deeper, and I figured we go back to not the first cell phone that came out, but our first experiences with them. And my first experience with a cell phone was the Nokia 3210. Man, this thing was an absolute brick. Like, it was a battle tank. I remember playing hacky sack with this phone, and it still worked. It was my very first phone, and apparently it came out March 1999. I do not know when I got it. I think I was 15 or something like that. I don't remember. Probably younger than that. But it was definitely one of them free phones, because I promise you, my parents were not going to spend money, on like newer phones that come out at that point in time. So it was probably one of them freebies, but this was back when cell phones didn't have nothing on them. Like, it was legitimately a phone. Like, they didn't even have any games on them at all. Like, not until we go to the next phone that I own. I think it had Snake on it,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my first phone. And then we jump over to the Motorola Razr. A lot of you, especially if you're in our age range, remember this one. It was very popular. It looks like it came out in 2004. I didn't have this phone very long. I didn't like it. It was actually too thin for me. I know that was its main selling point, was the fact that it's so thin. But I don't know. I felt like I was going to break it.
Before you jump to the next one, Bud. So my first phone would have been some form of a flip phone. I cannot remember what it was called. It's probably Motorola. That time period they were kind of kicking ass. I mean, well, I guess my first one would have been a Nokia similar to yours, of course, because they were kind of running the ship. But I don't think I ever used it for much. I didn't have it for very long, if at all. I just my first cell phone I got in like high school, so sophomore year. So I'd have been like, I don't know, like you said, 14, 15. And it would have been, I don't know the name of it. I couldn't recall that. But it's definitely some form of a Motorola phone, I would guess. It was definitely a flip phone. And then I kind of went a while without a phone and just a cell phone in general, just because of my circumstances. And then I got a cheap flip phone once I kind of got a job, was on my feet again after I graduated high school. Just a cheap old, regular old flip phone. I'll let you keep going because then I'll catch up. And then the first phone that I remember is a couple phones away. So you can go ahead and take back over.
Alrighty. So after the Razr for me, I upgraded to the LG VX 8300. And I remember this phone. I got it when I was a sophomore or a freshman in high school, somewhere around there. I only wanted it because it had the two speakers on the side, like where it flips, and it had a pretty good camera on it. I don't remember exactly. I think it was like 1.3 megapixel. I know y'all are laughing at me, but hey, back in the day, that was quality, because phones back then barely even broke a megapixel. And now we have phones that are like past 100. Yeah, I wanted this phone solely for that double speaker. That way I could put it in my pocket and walk around the hallway in school blasting my old metal bands I used to listen to, like Slipknot, Korn. Then after that, we upgraded to the Dare, the LG Dare, that came out in 2008. So this was year after I graduated high school. And this phone was the very first touchscreen phone, if memory serves. It had a 3.2 megapixel camera, so we was shooting the ranks as far as
Double.
like the quality goes. Technology was booming
It
back
was
then.
double. It actually was double the megapixels. It's pretty crazy. Not to interrupt, but I'm pretty sure that I had a phone similar to this one, except mine had a slide out keyboard. It obviously wasn't the Dare, but it was something very similar. It was by LG. I remember that the touchscreen actually stopped working, and before I decided to buy a new phone, and I would just I had to use the keyboard at that point, and obviously you couldn't do the same stuff with the phone in 2008 as you can today. So it really wasn't a huge deal. It just made texting a little bit different, right?
Mm-hmm. Look at this battery life on this thing. 280 minutes of talk time. I don't even know what that
That's
is.
crazy.
Bring up the
80 minutes.
old calculator
That's
here.
looks like 5.5.
It's a
Four
4
and a,
point
yeah, 4.5 hours.
4.6 hours of usage. But you know what? Back then, you didn't have 4G internet and streaming
Yeah.
videos and that kind of stuff, because even still the web page stuff at that time was pretty primitive, even at 2008.
Yeah, you were still using a form of a website. Like everything's optimized for mobile now, but it's not the same thing. It was like
Yeah, all you had was MySpace back then, really, and email
yeah,
still.
and this was pre apps too. So you were well, I guess it wasn't completely pre apps, but it wasn't to the same extent, of course. Like you said, it was very primitive. A lot of what we were using it for at that time was like just pictures and stuff, texting. There wasn't a whole lot you could do when you think about it. It's kind of crazy when you think back. I mean, like you said, this is 2008, so we're only talking 12, 13 years ago. Outside of taking a picture and the very primitive, like we said, very very primitive Internet Explorer type that it had, you basically just used it for text messaging and phone calls. That was about it.
I mean, yeah, to the specs on this thing also says that the video resolution is a VGA 640 by 480. So
Oof.
for all my PC people out there, y'all understand about resolutions probably better than most people. That is not a very good resolution,
I'm sure it was great for the time for a phone, though. But yes,
Oh
it's
yeah,
not very
yeah,
good
for
at all.
sure. But I mean, this is before 720, which is technically like HD. The first form of HD is 720. So yeah, this is before we got into HD resolutions. Still, even in 2008.
Yeah, I
Then
think 720 wasn't introduced for actually quite a while. Let's see. I guess
I don't remember.
it says 98, but it didn't start to become like
Yeah, I mean
consistent till the 2000 late 2000s.
that might be like resolution for like movie makers. You know what I mean? I'm talking
Well, this was talking
more.
about This was talking about like TV shows or TV channels.
Yeah, I was talking
Um,
more as in consumer, like public consumer, like because I remember I didn't even buy my first 720 TV until I don't know, it was when Destiny come out, whenever that was, 2006, 2007. Is that right?
no, Destiny came out in like 2000.
Okay, so maybe it was a
Destiny.
couple years before Destiny,
Yeah,
2010 ish. I don't remember. It's hard to
trying to get
hard to
some
piece
information
together
up.
the
Sorry,
timeline.
I'm trying to pull up some information. I'm not doing much. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about totally different. It still wasn't widely mainstream yet because I mean, I didn't really watch stuff on TV at this time, 2008, 2009. But I recall it starting to become the standard probably about this time, and we're talking about just TV though, so it's still not the same as what you would experience on a cell phone, but at this time, so between 2000 and like 6 and 2010, I think that's when they kind of started that run. So
Yeah, because
obviously,
the
cell phones are a little behind that.
yeah, because the 360 had come out that time, and I remember specifically with the 360, it came out with the component cables, so you could
Yeah,
run 480. Because the Xbox prior to that only had composite cables, which is, the yellow, white, and red, just like the
Right.
SNES run through and the PlayStation and all those other machines. And 360 was the first one to introduce the component cables, which had the, what was it, green, blue, and red on top of the yellow, white, and red. Or no, green, blue,
Yeah, I
and
think so.
what was the other color? Orange. That's what it was.
Yeah, so it had 6 instead of just a regular 3.
Yeah, and then we came out with HDMI in, I don't know, 2012, 2013, 2014, somewhere around there.
That's probably when it became standard, yeah.
Yeah. So moving on, after the LG Dare, I had the Droid X. And this is where we're starting to get into some kind of relevancy to our own timeline. This phone came out in 2010, and it came out with version 2.3 of the Android operating system. And this phone, I remember when I first got it, this was the game changer because it was actually my first quote unquote smartphone. I think that, I don't know if they labeled the Dare as a smartphone, but it wasn't, like you said, it didn't have the apps on it and it didn't multitask very well. It was just a touchscreen phone that could email and open up web pages and stuff. The droids, the Android phones, they do pretty much what they still do to this day, except for obviously now they do them better. But you had your MP3 players on it, you had your web pages on there where you could open up multiple tabs and stuff. You had 3G internet that came out whenever, I don't know the exact year, but it's just like with every generational internet change from 3G to 4G and from 4G to 5G, it's always a lot faster. So 3G was the quick internet to have at the time. What else did these phones do? Oh yeah, they had awesome cameras on them. This one, let's see if I can find it. This one came out with an 8 megapixel camera. So we went from a 3.2 megapixel on my Dare to a 8 megapixel. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this one had a front camera too. Maybe not. And man, it's hard to remember all this stuff. Stop laughing at me. Also, this thing came out recording 720. So at 20 FPS. Wow.
That's not bad for the time period.
Yeah, but thinking about it nowadays, yeah, it's just like, wow.
Yeah, what's funny is I actually remember when you got this phone because we obviously we were working together at this time, and you're like, "This is the best phone ever."
It was.
I don't think you lasted very long with it because I hadn't upgraded. I don't think I upgraded my phone. I think I still had the same. I had to, but I don't know what I don't know what I had after because
I think you had the Razor.
Maybe, I don't know. I just remember the old sliding thing, and I had to have upgraded at that. I had that phone in like 2009, and the next phone on the list is the iPhone 5, but that didn't come out. I don't even know when that came out, but that's a long time to have a phone, like 4 or 5 years. That's a long time.
2012 on the iPhone 5.
Yeah, so we're talking 3.5 years. That's a long ass time, especially when they were giving you at the time still free phone to upgrade, right?
Well, no, because at this point, the way Verizon did it was you paid the $200 every 2 years to get a new phone.
Right. Yeah. So, for the fancy phones.
Yeah. I mean, you could always get the free ones, but it's just like now, the free ones are like 3-4 generations behind. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember. I like this droid, man. It was awesome when it worked. And here's where my story shifts for all of y'all listening.
Both of ours.
Yeah, I started with the Android, loved it. And maybe it's because I was only on the version 2.3, so it was still fairly new. I remember I had a corrupt file save on my micro SD card, and for whatever reason, when that happened, it completely made my phone just lock down. Like I could not use it. So I took the SD card out of the phone, and the phone would run fine. I'm like, okay. So I bought another SD card and re-downloaded all my music back on the SD card, all my pictures and stuff. And then I forgot, I think the other issue is that it kept turning off and on just randomly. So once it started doing that, I was done with the droid because at the time, me and my other friend named Chris, he was a huge Apple fanboy and I was against Apple 1000%. And I got so pissed off at this phone that whenever it started that whole shutting off on its own thing, that's whenever I went and got the iPhone 5.
Yeah, that's a funny story. We actually, me and you actually pre-ordered it together, more not on purpose, but I think it worked out where we both pre-ordered it at the same time.
Yeah, we
To
went
put
to
in
the store.
perspective, yeah, to put in perspective, we both pre-ordered it. That's insane, right? Like that's weird, but we were so ready to get away from Android in a lot of ways that we were willing to wait for it. You know what I mean? It was wild.
Yeah, because I'd never pre-ordered a phone. Like I'd always
No,
went, waited for my 2-year contract to end and then bought
yep.
a phone that was already out.
Yeah, me too. That's what I'm saying. It's so weird. And I was like, but I was so ready for something else.
And
I
see,
don't
like,
even recall what the major hook was, really, besides it being Apple, of course.
this phone, I don't even understand why I wanted to buy this phone. Like, it it has a eight megapixel camera, same exact
Yep.
size as my Droid X, and this phone come out 3 years afterward.
Yeah.
So it's like, and this was always my debate with Chris is like, why would I want to go buy an Apple product that has less or the same specs that my current product does? And this phone's 3 years newer. I don't
Yeah.
I don't understand how this attracts a fan base. I just don't get it. But
Until you bought it.
yeah, after owning it, I'm completely changed man because I am definitely an Apple fan now. With phones, still not with
Yeah.
computers. Let's just throw that out there. I mean, wow, it's a phone that works, and that's all I can say. It may not
Yeah.
be super fancy. It may not can do everything that an Android can do, but it works. And I don't know how else to describe it. It does its phone calls, it does its music, it does its web pages, it does whatever else you need to do. Like the camera on it's really good, even for being 8 megapixel, because their software just helps it make better pictures. The battery life on it's great. It multitasks very well. One of the things, too, was the whole closed source versus open source. Back then, I didn't like the idea of iPhone being a closed source, but now that I
Me
own
either.
one, yeah, now that I own one, I get it. That's what helps contribute to the smoothness of this phone because every single app that is designed has to run through, the App Store for iPhone. So every app gets reviewed, and all these
But not just every app,
iPhones,
right?
yeah. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but remember when we put in our podcast, it took us almost 3 weeks for Apple to approve the podcast. So, I mean, they ensure that everything is the way it's supposed to be. And, that contributes exactly to what Bud's saying. Like, they don't play around when it comes to anything they allow on their, either their app store or any apps that they own and produce. So, it really contributes to a lot of what we needed as consumers, especially in 2012
yeah,
and today.
because when we submitted our podcast, Spotify was like right then and there. They didn't review it at all. It just straight from Anchor to Spotify, no checks whatsoever. I guess Spotify thinks, well, if it's good enough for Anchor, it's good enough for us. And Apple's like, nah, we need to run through this and make sure everything's right. Is your picture this going to work on our platform? Is your titling going to work? Is your quality going to work? That kind of stuff, which the quality's still up in the air.
Yeah. But it's definitely a big difference is what I'm saying. It's like you said, when we first submitted the podcast, like you said, Anchor automatically, because it was recorded, or well, it was published through Anchor, and then Spotify, because they own Anchor, there was no checks and balances there. Whereas Apple's like, yeah, it'll be about 2 weeks, and it's like, what? You're already 3 weeks behind by the time this one comes out. But I guess that's their way of making sure everything's good, and it hasn't necessarily failed them, right?
No, because like that closed source thing is like, I don't know if Apple makes their own hardware. I'm pretty sure that they do. I don't know if they make all of their own hardware. Like I know they make their processors and stuff. These phones, for whatever reason, because of that fact alone, they just work so good. Like my iPhone 5 came out in 2012. The iPhone 7 came out 2016. So that was 4 years before I even wanted to upgrade to a new phone. Like that phone still worked really well in a 4-year period before I decided to upgrade. And the thing is, when I went to upgrade, it wasn't because I had to. It's just because I really wanted to.
Yeah, I mean the biggest issue, which Apple had to pay because they got fined for it, was throttling the battery on the. I think it was the iPhone 5 and the iPhone 6. They got in trouble because they were making them run out quicker. They had to pay out for it. But I mean, aside from if you could just replace the battery, which you can, that's really the biggest issue is the battery life. But it's a battery. It's supposed to be worn down. It's not supposed to last forever. So really, I mean, I think the only reason what's so funny about the iPhone 5 when I bought that, it was a struggling time period for me. So I had to, I thought I was making a smart decision, and I did. I ended up upgrading for other reasons, but I kept the iPhone 5 forever. I replaced the screen on the iPhone 5. I replaced the charging port on the iPhone 5. Uh, all because I mean this was my fault, right? Like I mean, it's not like it wasn't a faulty issue with the phone itself. It was something that I did to the phone, causing it not to be able to charge, which is very frustrating.
Yeah, I had to buy another one too because I got a pallet shard from when I worked at Walmart. We used to
Mm,
stack up pallets and stuff, and little loose, tiny pieces of wood would fall in my pocket. And I think my case, my OtterBox at the time, didn't have one of those little rubber flap things to cover the hole, and one of those wooden shards got into the charging hole. And then shoving the charger in there with something, obstructing its way, it just snapped off the pins, which I don't blame iPhone for because charging pins on any cell phone, I mean, they're little tiny copper pins. It don't take much to break them. I mean, you could probably blow on it hard enough and bend them. So I just bought another iPhone 5. I chalked that one up to my mess up, not Apple's.
yeah, I mean the iPhone 5 was damn near perfect. The only complaint I really ever had was what the screen was. That everybody had with it, right? They said the screen was too small, but I never really had it. I didn't have a personal issue with it. It was about what does it say, 4 inches or so.
A
Um,
4.3, I think, was its size.
Yeah, so it wasn't massive, but it didn't need to be. It did everything that I wanted it to do and more,
4 inch.
a lot more. Yeah, 4 inches. So, that's not very big, but the best part about it was it gave you the opportunity to, like you said, there's always a debate, and there will always be the debate of closed source versus open source. And I'm very much on the fence about it, or I was very much on the fence about it until I switched to iPhone. And, you talk to some people that will bounce back and forth, but I just like the consistency and the more or less the ease of use. It's not always easy to use it. Sometimes can be very confusing. They just find ways to make it better. And even today, but iPhone, if the iPhone 5 probably didn't come around, I don't know if I would have the original iPhone and and I don't know the numbers because I don't think it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but yeah, it went to 1 to 3 to 4 and then 5.
Yeah, the
So
iPhone 3G, and then the 3GS.
and those were okay, but they weren't really what I was looking for. What's so funny is the iPhone 5 because of the time period, it had such a short lifespan. It was only about a year. I mean, it lasted for about 3 years, I guess, total. Once they added in some other varieties, the C and the S,
Yeah, they made
right
the.
before they released the 6.
I remember the C model.
They had fancy, cool colors, pastel colors on them.
Well, not only that, but they made it cheaper because it was no longer a aluminum phone; it was plastic. So that
Oh yeah,
that was the whole point behind the 5C was for to drop that price down because everyone's bitching about how iPhones are too expensive. Even though I never understood that because Android phones were the same damn price.
yeah, yeah. I've struggled with. There's a reason why Gucci belts are $500. It's because people pay for it. So
Yeah,
it's supply and demand. So if you make a great product, a lot of people, some people, and a lot of people actually, because I mean, it's weird if I see somebody that does, like, it's a funny story now. Like if I text somebody and it goes green, I'm like, this asshole. Like, like really, really? It's what?
you
Like I
disgust
probably
me with your
yeah.
presence.
Like, I swear, out of all the people that I've like, because I've started a new job, so I started to text new people that I haven't really text. You know what I'm saying?
So
And
what you're saying is when they're green, you're automatic. I hate
I'm
you.
like, Yeah, I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is bull crap," you know? uh, but no, for real, it's just one of those funny things that it's almost like, uh, I thought so highly of you. And I'm kidding, but it's definitely a funny thing when you go to text somebody and it's like green, you're like, dang it. The only person that I know really
I
know is like
thought
my
we had
dad.
something special.
Yeah, like my dad is like the only person I know that still has, and that's because he just doesn't care. He just has to use one because he has to. But
Yeah,
he just has an older Android phone. I don't even know which one he has, but he wasn't looking for nothing fancy. It was I'm pretty sure it's a Samsung, but I don't know which one.
probably a
But yeah,
Galaxy.
some form of a Galaxy for sure. But that's his jam. He's totally fine with that. Does everything he needs it to do. Um, but that's about it. I don't really know a whole lot of people that still have Androids these days. I'm sure there's a lot that use them. Yeah, people are buying phones for their kids because they're so cheap, right? And you can just buy a cell phone, but just don't attach it to nothing. Like, I worked for a Walmart in a bad part of town. I won't say which one it was, and I sold a lot of phones, but no plans. Because we had an electronics department, and they would sell. They would never buy minutes, but they would buy the phone, and they would just give them to their kids to like $45 phone. Just give to your kids and let them run it ragged. I guess I don't know, but obviously those are all Android phones, just because that's what we carried the most of. We still had some iPhones, but they're talking about totally different. We were usually like 3 generations behind. Like, we were still pushing the 5s in, like, 2017. I don't know when they finally got rid of selling them, but, yeah, we were still pushing them for a long, long time. It might have been the S's or the C's, but it was a lot it was quite a while before we stopped pushing the iPhone 5s. Is
2013.
that when they discontinued it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about the S and the C? Because 'Cause I'm pretty sure it was the S's and the C's that we were still selling. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, insert music here.
Yeah, it's like trying to help out. Trying to fill some space there. It had to be. I swear they're still making them. They probably just discontinued from like mass production. Maybe it was the SC. Shit, I don't know, man. I can't keep track. It says March.
2016, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we might have maybe it was the SC that we were getting in, which is basically an iPhone 5 anyway. They just changed it to the SE. I don't know what the differences truly were. Um, but that was what we were selling is the iPhone SE. That's what it was. That we were still selling for a little while, which is irrelevant, but I was just, I guess it was part of the story. So, Bud, what was the next phone you decided to buy?
The iPhone 7. And that is still my current phone to this day.
Loser. I'm just kidding.
What do you mean, loser? It works.
so, so
That's the other thing. That like
I'm just kidding. I was joking.
Here's the thing with Apple. The Android messed up, and that's what caused me to go to Apple.
Yeah.
The iPhone is yet to mess up, with the exception of the one that I messed up. Well, so
I only had one issue, so yeah.
So like I said, this iPhone 7, it came out 2016. It's now April 3rd, 2021. So I'm still I'm still using this phone. And it's just now starting to kind of give me some issues. Like, the main issue is obviously the battery life, because it's an old phone and I can't use it without having to charge it, daily, which that's not really a huge ordeal. I mean, that's why car chargers exist. I don't know. The support that Apple does. Like, I don't remember what iOS version came on this phone. I want to say it was something like
Scroll down.
8 or 9. iOS 10. So we're on iOS 14 now.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And it still works on this phone. Whereas Android phones, because there's so many different manufacturers that make Android phones, and there's so much different hardware out there, that the software versions, they can't do that. So like the Android stuff, like my Droid had the 2.3 Gingerbread on it, but my Droid X probably wouldn't be able to run like Android 4 or 5. Definitely it wouldn't be able to run 5. But the iPhone stuff, it just keeps chugging away, because Apple makes all this stuff be able to work with these old phones. I mean,
up to a point, but yeah.
Yeah, because I think iPhone 5 is probably the last one that works for ISO. iOS 14.
Yeah, probably.
And that's still pretty crazy if you think about it. If the iPhone 12 came out in 2012, that's a 13-year-old phone. Like, it's probably time to give it a break.
Yeah, yeah. You misspoke by saying the iPhone 12, but I know you meant the iPhone 5. Um, but yeah, it's kind of crazy that they maintain these are such a long term investment on the phone. I guess in a lot of ways, that's the benefit of that closed system is it allows you the opportunity to like continue this because you already know what's in that one, right? Whereas Android's building to all these different manufacturers and all these different specs and all this different stuff that it just doesn't have the same capabilities.
Android's like PCs. Like,
Yeah.
they have new hardware come out every 3 months.
Yeah,
You know,
you know what's funny? Just because we were joking about it when I was talking about building a PC, and I was like, and when you were talking about it, and I mentioned that I was like, okay, well, let me go look at the iMacs just out of curiosity more than anything.
mhm.
Well, first of all, they added Intel, so they don't run just their own chips now. They do run Intel chips,
Oh,
but the specs are actually pretty. I mean, they're a little obviously they're more expensive, right?
yeah.
Um, I think like because I don't remember the one you sent me, but I think it was like over 2 grand for an Intel processor. I don't remember what the processor was. I'm sure you could pull it up for us if you wanted to. But it had only had like 16 gigs, which is still good. But it's not like massive, right? So the specs are probably great. I think it was the iMac. Yep. The specs are great for what they are, but I guess because of the closed system, I think it's only in the 27 inch. You have to click on it. There you go.
27.
Yeah, I think it's only the 27.
So this is the bad boy model here.
Yeah, the big bad. Well, it might be in the 21 too, but I'm pretty sure it was in this one.
Yeah,
Where's
see, that's already a problem.
well, there's the
Oh,
Intels though. Yeah,
$2,000 model? Okay. So a
yeah,
3.3 gigahertz, 6 core, 10th gen i5, 8 gigabytes of
yeah.
2666 megahertz DDR4 memory, 512 gigabyte solid state drive, a Radeon Pro 5300, 4 gigabyte of GDDR6 memory. Yeah, see, here's my problem because in the land of PCs right now, this processor is cheap. Like a 6 core i5. I mean, they just released their i9 1100 series processors. My processor I have in my PC right now is a 12 core. The
It's kind of funny,
RAM,
ain't it?
yeah, the memory, 8 gigabytes. I mean,
Barely
16,
enough.
yeah, 16 standard nowadays.
Yeah.
And the speed here, that's standard speed. Like most people that buy RAM go at least 3000 megahertz. And then the
But what's
storage,
funny is I'm sure it runs
oh, for
like
sure.
because Apple they find a way to get the most out of everything. So because of it being on a closed system, I think it probably still gets really good. Like it probably runs above what the specs say. Like obviously, remember the iPhone, the camera. Even though it says it's only 8 megapixels on the iPhone 5, it tend to run at a higher, or it appeared to run at a higher megapixel. You know what I'm saying?
Well, here's the thing with Apple stuff. There's a reason that Apple computers are still used very much so today, even in like music production and video editing and that kind of stuff. It's because of the fact that while they may have the inferior hardware, their programs are so much more stable on a
Yep.
Mac. Where even my awesome $2,500 tower that I just made, I've had programs, force close themselves basically. It's nothing to do with my PC hardware, and it's not really nothing to do with the program itself. It's just that they're not mixing together. Like something caused an error to make it shut down. Whereas these
They're not
programs,
gelling.
yeah, these programs that are designed for Apple computers, just like the apps for the iPhone, they have to run under Apple's supervision to make sure that they're all hunky dory to release. So when you're running, like, say, Apple's music words. Apple's music program is called Logic. So Logic runs flawlessly on an Apple, and that's why most people use it is because it's a good program that just doesn't fail. Like you don't need all this badass hardware to do music production, because not many people are playing games on an Apple, which is
No.
majority of people hollering about their God, I cannot talk today.
Yeah.
Their PC specs, people brag about, their 3090 cards and their, 16 core processors or their Threadrippers or Intel Xeon process, you know what I mean? Or running two
Yeah, I
graphics
do,
cards
'cause
and an
I have no idea what
SLI.
you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I'm ranting. You need to break in here to cut me off. But
Yeah. But no, what you're saying is 100% true. The people who are running, Macs in general, they're using them for, I guess, like, they're not using them to play video games. I mean, to give a good example, when I played EverQuest, Mac only had one server, so you had to play on a specific server if you ran iMac, or well, it wasn't called an iMac then, but whatever. When you ran the Apple computer, because it was such different hardware, it couldn't mesh well with the other hard drives and stuff with the other computers, I guess. I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say, but that it was kind of crazy. But yeah, it almost convinced me to buy it for a minute there, but I realized then we wouldn't have any opportunities to play games together. But there are
another
some, like you said, there's your Logic Pro down there, but
yeah, another thing I'd like to add is even Apple's website feels
smooth, man.
like it feels like their phone. Like it's just so
Yeah.
clean.
Yep.
It makes me want to buy something, even though I know better.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like, I went to the website, because of course I'm looking, right? I'm not really like buying today, but I was just looking. Like, I looked at the Mini, for example, like the one that you got right there,
Yeah.
the iMac Mini.
Look at this
I looked
screen,
at it,
man. It's
yeah,
all
just to kind of
black and
see
it's
what it's
got
about.
the lighting silhouette here with the little apple
Yeah,
glistening in here. It's got
yep,
the sharp font on here. Like they know how to make a website.
yeah. It's like, let's buy that today. Uh,
Yeah, like I don't need a MacBook, but I want to buy it.
uh,
Like that
yeah.
little glow right here.
Yeah, I guess they have a
Nice.
new chip out. But yeah, a lot of it was, like you said, there everything that they do is just like top notch, and it would take some crazy Android to get me to change back. I almost did when the what was the ones that were exploding? Is that the Galaxies?
Yeah, the S series phones. And they're still the
So
best selling phone on the market now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The S20 Plus, I think it is.
So I right around that time period. So it was like iPhone 8 or so. I don't know.
That
I'm
was
just
probably the
guessing. It's not
S10
iPhone 8.
at
Um,
that time.
Yeah, so it was right around that time period. I was like, you know what? I'm kind of getting tired of Android. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm getting tired of iPhone just because
You
it's
had
so
it right the
I guess
first time.
yeah. Well, it was it was kind of like,
Cough button.
sorry, I hadn't get that installed yet. It'll be here tomorrow. No, it's here, but it's sitting behind me on the bed.
Don't make me
Uh,
make another loop.
yeah. uh, that'll be on the Patreon one day. So I was considering, and it was really not seriously considering, but I was considering switching. And then they like started exploding on airplanes. Not that I'm on an airplane very often, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stick with what I know, and I'm gonna stick with what I can count on. So I'm gonna stay over here with my iPhone.
But
Um,
that is a pretty cool power to have in your pocket.
yeah, explode out a window and stuff. Nothing beats that.
Yeah, now the
But
FFA is going to come banging on our doors.
so I switched to the iPhone 6, which is not up here because you went to the iPhone 7. I think it was the 6, and because I had switched jobs, and when I switched jobs, I got a really good discount through AT&T. So when I switched to AT&T, I had to get a new phone. So I'm pretty sure it was the iPhone 6 or the 6S. It might have been the 6S. I had a crazy issue with that, or maybe it was the 8. It was either the 6 or the 8. I can't remember. I apologize. But there was this issue that they knew existed. This is the craziest thing that ever happened in my entire life. So supposedly if you drop it, mine was in a case. It's in a fancy OtterBox. The whole 9 yards. I did everything I could to try to make sure I protected this $700 phone. I may have touched it here and there or whatever. I had a situation where
Don't take that
one
out of
of the
context.
yeah. Where one of the I guess one of the what am I looking for? But it's on like one of the it's on like the motherboards or whatever, but one of the solderings or something came off and it prevented me from being able to make phone calls or to be called. And
Kind of defeats the purpose of a phone.
yeah, so I call well, first I called AT&T and they're like, "Yeah, there's nothing wrong with your phone on our end." And
But
I
you
was
didn't
like,
call them
"Okay."
using that phone.
No, I called him using Christina's phone, and, so then I called, Apple, and they were like, "Yeah, we know this is an existing issue, so you're kinda shit out of luck." And, I was like, "Okay." Like, "You have to buy a new phone." I was like, "What?" And, because I hadn't even finished paying it off yet, this is back when where you would go the 2-year contract still.
See, that's
I
that's
think it was.
funny you mentioned that because I've always heard from all these Apple fanboys that the Apple Care or whatever it is like top notch stuff. But
Well,
I've I've
that's not the best part of
always
the story.
I've always seen how crowded these Apple stores are, and honestly, if my Apple product ever breaks, I'm just gonna buy a new one. I will pay
Yeah.
the $1,000 up front, just not have to stand in line.
Yeah, so, I guess the funny part about the story, I won't get into every little detail, but, um, so then basically Christina I had to work that night. I was on third shift, and Christina went down to the AT&T. I'm sorry, went down to the Apple store, which the only Apple store we have is in Charlotte, and I think it's in North Lake Mall. She's waiting in line to be helped, and they were like, "Yeah, there's really not much we can do." And but she had gotten a hold of like the head of like customer service or some. Listen, when you piss off Christina, she will find every which way to find out whatever she can do to be successful, and that's what she did. So somehow she got a hold of like some customer service rep, and they were like, what's the nearest store to you?" And long story short, she got me a new phone. After they were like, "Yeah, there's nothing we can do to help you. You can't get a new phone, yada yada yada." But she got me a brand new one, and they didn't make my phone anymore, so they had to give me a newer phone, I guess. Uh, so I ended up coming out on top, and then they gave me a free Bose speaker, and they sent me the wrong color, so they gave me another free Bose speaker.
Did you have to send
So
the first one back?
no, we Christina said, "Hey, what do you want me to send the other one back?" And they're like, "No, don't worry about it." So
Pretty good deal.
yeah, all because I can't remember. I think she wanted teal, and they sent black, and she was like, "Listen, I appreciate the black one. I'm not here to complain, but I asked for teal, and you asked me to pick anything that I wanted, and they were like, "Oh, okay." And she said, and so then she asked, "Hey, where do you want me to send this one back?" And she was like, "Don't worry about it. The blue one's on the way." So it all worked out, I guess. I just didn't have a phone for a couple days, but now I'm on the 11, I guess. I don't know. I think it's the 11, and
You're
I
kind of
didn't
like
upgrade for any reason.
you're kind of like me with phones. You stop caring, so you don't even know what you have. You're just like, I use a
Yeah,
phone for a
yeah.
phone.
I mean, so I didn't upgrade for any particular reason. Oh, because we switched. So I quit. I don't work for Walmart anymore. So when I quit Walmart, I kind of lost my I lost my discounts. So I switched over to T-Mobile. So when I switched to T-Mobile, I had to switch phones, of course. And so we traded it in, and I ended up with the iPhone 11. It had just come out, and it was free if you switch. So my phone and her phone are free. So that's the only reason why we made the move. But I didn't, I could have kept the 5 still for all I cared. Like, I didn't upgrade for any reason other than the fact that I made a switch, really. I
You
mean, that
kind of
was the only
had to,
reason.
yeah.
Yeah, and they don't really want them to communicate between each other. Or I guess that, because it was right around the time when I went to the 6, they stopped putting, like, back in the day, it used to say like Verizon or AT&T on the actual phone,
Hmm.
and they stopped doing that around the 6 and the 7. Well, I don't think they ever did it with iPhone in general, but they they kind of stopped doing that with all phones. So you own it. They just put like a code on it to make sure you pay for it. Otherwise, it does never gets jailbroken or whatever. I don't know how that all works, but it's right around that time period where it started to happen. So I don't know. I was happy with the all of the iPhones I got, except for that one issue that I had, which I worked out being fine for me. Right? What would it take to make you switch back to an Android?
Probably the same thing that happened to my Droid. The phone would just have to shut off and shut on and be unusable. Because, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not, at my current age, I don't care if a phone's got a 30 megapixel camera on it. I don't care if the phone has T1 internet connection on it. I don't care if the phone has a hologram on it. I don't care it the phone is an MRI machine. I really don't. I just want it to work. I want the battery to be decent. I just want it to make phone calls, do texts, not stumble around browsing internet pages. And that's really all I use a phone for. I don't play games on my phone, so I don't need the latest hardware on phones. So it would have to be to where the phone just would not work anymore. And I really don't see the iPhone doing that anytime soon.
No, because you would just upgrade to the new iPhone, right? Like
Yeah.
in
Like
your
when
current state, it's
yeah.
because of it would be the phone you have, right?
Yeah, like when this one when the battery gets like a little bit worse, like when the new iOS comes out, if it becomes to a point to where it's way too jittery and laggy, then I'll go ahead and upgrade.
Yeah, but you would keep, that's the funny thing is like we don't, and I already know that you mean that you're going to upgrade to the newest iPhone. You're not even considering like an Android phone.
No. No.
Yeah, I think that just my brief moment considering this. Well, so the reason I even considered that was I had a buddy of mine who was like a diehard iPhone guy. Like he was diehard Apple. Like he was like, I love Apple, blah 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 blah. And then when the Galaxies, whatever that, I guess it was the Samsung Galaxy, when they got like super popular, he made the switch back, and he's like, "Oh man, the camera shots are so much better, yada yada, whatever." And and all he has is issues with it. But he made the switch, and like he's all about Samsung now. I don't whatever. Um, and like he was talking it up so much, kind of how Chris did for you. Like I
Well,
think
yeah.
he almost worked it in the opposite, right? Like he almost talked you out of it every time. I would guess.
Well, yeah, and I mean the thing is, like, I have nothing against Samsung. Like, I love Samsung electronic products. They make really good products. And I don't have anything really against Android anymore. Like, I used to be one of those brand loyal elitist guys, but I'm sure they got all the kinks fixed out from when I owned a Droid X, and I'm sure they're really great phones now. But like I've said earlier, this phone just hasn't given me any issues or grief. So I really don't need to switch over to the other side of the fence. Like, why leave something that's good, that's treated me right?
Yep, that's kind of how I am. In my eyes, there's no reason to make the move. Like it does everything that I needed to do and more. Like they added in Apple One now, where you get like your iCloud storage and all that bundled. For a while there, I pay for Apple Music. You pay for Spotify Plus or
Mm,
whatever they call it,
premium, yeah.
um, premium, whatever. I've always preferred Apple Music. That's just been my preference, right? It's just a preference, So they bundled that together, so now I have access to the iCloud and the arcade, which is whatever. I don't really care about those games that much, but it's something to kind of kill some time here and there. And it's all for one price that my family, anybody that's on mine. So, but I could add you one day if you wanted to be on there. You know what I
I'm all
mean? Like,
right.
but I'm just saying, like, it's one of those cool things where they don't even have to necessarily be on the same network. It's just like whatever you consider family. I think it's like 6 people. I guess those things are just kind of really nice that Apple does in
Uh,
terms of like
I'm lucky enough to
how
be
they
considered a
solve.
friend, much less
Oh,
family.
whatever. You're about as close to family as I got.
Make me cry on the show.
Yeah. uh, so a lot of it for me is like, I guess like the way everything synchronizes and it all just works. Like you were saying, sometimes for whatever reason on your PC, it just like Discord and Reaper don't want to cooperate. They're like brothers and sisters, right? Some days they
Yeah.
just don't. They just want to fight. They just don't want to work together. And Apple's like is like that mean teacher that just got everybody in a row doing exactly what you need them to do, like the drill sergeant or something. So nobody gets out of line.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. I've had my PC now for about 4 months, 3 months, something like that. I've already had a blue screen of death happen. So,
Oh goodness.
good job, Microsoft. But that's, it's got to be very, very hard to develop an operating system that's tied around so many different hardware configurations, which is what was Android's initial problem. That's why
Yeah.
their software versions only supported like 2 to 3 updates, and Apple's supports a lot longer than that because they make most of their hardware and they design their own software. Because I'm not even sure to this day who designs the actual Android operating systems, because I don't think
Yeah.
Android
I don't have
makes
any
their own
idea.
hardware.
Yeah, I don't. I think they're. It's just something I have no idea. But yeah, I would make the assumption that they're two totally different things that try to commingle.
Yeah,
Um,
just like how
because
PCs do.
even Microsoft, they were using Android, right? When they put out the Microsoft phone, so
Yeah.
it's not like they introduced a different system. And Google the same way, where Google was putting out their Google phones, it was still using a version of Android. So I would guess Android is the operating, like, it's similar to how Microsoft was. It was an operating system that everybody else still uses.
Hmm.
Obviously, I think that the Google phone and the Microsoft phone might have done better had it not been that way, to be honest. But you kind of can't close off the system when you're fighting with that system. When your point is to be a part of that system, you know?
Oh, so you wanted the Google phone and the Microsoft phone to come with its own operating system to compete with the
Yeah,
iPhone and the Android?
yeah. I think that they might have been more successful. I'll be honest with you. I think that certain people, like I'm like you. I don't really hold a grudge. Like I just prefer what works, and then I just kind of don't leave that, whatever that is, until it doesn't work, and then either like regarding anything. But I think that if Microsoft or Google had abandoned Android, I think they would have had a because their whole thing was strictly to compete with Apple. Like when all the Google Pixels were the Google Pixel when it was coming out, their whole thing was like, oh, it's better than iPhone.
Right. Better
But
camera. Yeah.
you're still using the Android system. And again, I don't have any like qualms or issues with it personally. I've never had a successful Android phone, so and I see what a lot of these elderly now again, they're using older phones, but I see what a lot of these elderly people like they don't even know how to work this daggone thing and whatever. I think that they could have been more successful had they been like their own standalone. Even if the Microsoft phone ran like a version of Windows, even if it was like a because they have a tablet version of Windows. I don't think it would be that hard to sort of suck that into a phone. I would imagine. I mean, again, I'm not a computer programmer or nothing, but I would imagine it wouldn't be that much more difficult than putting it into a tablet, right? All
Right.
you would be doing is just adding certain functions that a cell phone can do that a tablet doesn't necessarily do.
Yeah. And
Uh,
especially if you look at notebooks that can flip around between like a tablet mode and then a Windows.
yeah. My laptop can do that. Mine doesn't have the removable keyboard, of course, but it can switch to tablet mode, I guess, to make the touchscreen and everything a little bit easier to use.
Yeah,
Um,
and it can do this transitioning on the fly. So, like you said, it probably wouldn't be no big deal for Microsoft to make its own mobile operating system.
yeah, this is like way off topic, but I think I was either A, reading an article or B, listening to a Bill Gates talk to somebody about it. But during their antitrust lawsuit, which Apple was part of, which is kind of funny, that they said that Microsoft owned too much of the marketplace and it was a monopoly, right?
Hmm.
And I don't remember the time period. To be honest with you, this would be a great podcast topic just to talk about because there's so much here. But Bill Gates said the reason that you think he said I'm sorry. What he said was had he not been in this antitrust lawsuit, you wouldn't be talking more than likely wouldn't be talking about the iPhone as much and you would be talking about whatever the Microsoft phone would have been. Because of this lawsuit, they were so far behind and they never really got a foothold. They just said to hell with it and just quit, you
Hmm.
know. Similar to the Zune, right? Like they wanted to compete with the iPod and it's just like any other war, right? The Zune lost. Just like we talked about the HD DVDs versus Blu-ray, right? And the HD DVD lost. Blu-ray won. So
Well,
there's always got to be a loser, right?
the other thing too is like around that same time period when the Zune came out versus the iPod, like right when the Zune came out, there was so many other like third party manufacturers making MP3 products and for a lot less price. So it's like, do you want to buy an iPod or do you want to buy say the iPod was like $200 or whatever when it released, or do you want to buy this other thing that does the same thing for $40? Or do you want to buy a Zune for $150?
Yeah, I think the reason Apple got like their thing was the iPod. Well, once it became the iPod with the big fat old iPods, the original iPod. I
Mhm.
think a lot of it was the reason it took such a good hold was iTunes. It wasn't even necessarily the
Yeah,
iPod.
its integration with its,
Right, where
PC products or its
it would link
iMacs and
in with.
shit.
Yeah, well, so, like, if you had iTunes on, once you plugged it in, it automatically loaded any song that you had on your iTunes. It was long enough ago, you know? You didn't have to pay for all of it as long as it was in iTunes, it's all that mattered. Or where you paid for it. It didn't have to come straight through iTunes as a purchase. You could have paid for it or ripped it onto your computer through, your disk drive from a CD, and, it would add it into there, and a lot of them, it got so smart where it would add in the album cover, and now it does lyrics and everything now, but being able to see the album cover when you're listening to a song and stuff like that, it's pretty cool. And I think the Zune tried to take certain things that Apple did really well and integrate it, but their system just wasn't as good, unfortunately. And that's one of the reasons. And the name's stupid. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on. An iPod is not any better.
no, but it worked with everything else they were doing.
See, that was always my gripe with Apple too back in the day was I hated that stupid lowercase I in front of everything.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
just so
yeah.
stupid. It's I stupid.
Yeah, but you know what? That they did it because they can trademark it.
I know.
Um,
It's still
and
stupid.
I agree. But I don't know if we'd be using the Microsoft Zune phone number 12 today.
Yeah.
But I think it was pretty funny to hear
But see, I
or
like
read Bill Gates
Microsoft.
talking about that.
Microsoft did what PlayStation done. You got Windows, and then like after they got off like the 95, the 98, the 2000, all years that they were released. Then they did the 7, the 8, 10. Don't know what happened to 9.
Yeah.
But it ain't like the Xbox. You got the Xbox, the 360, the One, the One X, the Series
Yeah.
X, the
I don't know who this asshole who was naming the damn the Xboxes, right? Like, he didn't
yeah.
go to Microsoft school.
Like how much you want to bet the next Xbox that comes out is going to be called the Xbox 5?
Yeah. I was like, we have to get in line here. We've been a little far off lately. I decided, or they'll just go back to Xbox.
And that was the
They'll
other
like
thing about
capitalize everything.
the Android versions here. Like, why are they all named after fucking desserts?
And think about how much money they had to pay for to be called the Kit Kat. Like, how
Yeah,
much money
like
did you pay Mars Bars or Mars Company for that shit?
like they had the cupcake, the donut, the eclair, the froyo, gingerbread, honeycomb, ice cream sandwich, jelly bean, Kit Kat, lollipop, marshmallow, nougat, Oreo, pie, and then I
And then it's
guess
like,
10,
all
11,
right, no
12.
more. They're like, I'm tired of paying for Oreo. No thanks. I had to pay Mondelez or whoever, Nabisco, whoever owns Oreo. I had to
And
pay them. I'm done with this crap.
Android 12 Reese's Pieces.
Yeah. Maybe they had a deal with them. I don't know, but it just seemed kind of foolish. I don't know. I mean, I get the nougat or calling it by something but I never understood why you'd call it Kit Kat because you can't. I don't know if you can get away with it without being paid for it. So it seems like you're wasting some time there. Or Oreo, like
Yeah.
I don't get it.
They could maybe get away with Kit Kat if they use like one
Maybe the way they
T
spelled
or
it.
two
Yeah,
T's. Kind of hard
yeah,
to
but
get around the
Oreo.
Oreo one.
Yeah, it's kind of funny though. Yeah, I wish Android all the best, but I don't see myself ever switching to an Android phone.
No.
Now, PC is a totally different scenario.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to really talk about that.
Well, that's
Uh,
that's because PC is just straight up for me anyway. It's price per dollar. Like we just read over those specs of iMac for
yeah,
$2,000. Boy, I can build a much faster PC for $2,000 than what they can offer you.
yeah, yeah. Like you said, it has its pros and cons. Although you could, like you said, build a faster, more game ready PC, you lose out on some of the stability, I guess. You know,
Yeah,
but
stability and features and
yeah,
how everything like all of and that's the other thing too is like Apple's products, they all work well together.
yeah,
I mean, look at their
integration,
iMessage.
yeah,
Yeah, the iMessage is still going strong. Just like you talked about in the beginning of this, the blue conversation.
yeah.
And the cool
Well, I
thing is
remember
with the
yesterday.
iMessage, that's a free service that
Yeah.
Apple offers. Like you don't have to have cell phone service
Oh,
to
I
do
totally
that.
forgot about this. But the cool thing about the iMessage was it didn't count towards your messages.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Uh,
It was free.
yeah. Yeah, and, like, back in the day when we used to have messages, like, bonked me upside the head, and they didn't care about data because, data wasn't a big deal then, so they were more worried about messages, so you could
Yeah,
get around
messages and
the
minutes was
messages.
your plan rates to get like
Yeah, so you could get
250 messages and 500 minutes or something for $20 a month.
yeah, and then the way around it was if you both had iPhones, they didn't count towards your messaging number, which I think is ridiculous, but,
Yeah, so you hope you
definitely
dated a
pretty
girl
awesome.
that had an iPhone.
Yeah, that's like, what was it yesterday you texted me, you're out in the mountains somewhere, and I was like, "Green." I'm like, "Green? What the fuck?" I was like, "What did Bud do?" I was like, "What is going on here?" Uh,
I even sent you a message that said test.
yeah, you
That's
sent me well, it
because,
ended up doubling.
yeah, for whatever reason, and this is probably a downfall of the iMessage, when you're in transition of no service to service and it says sent as text message, sometimes it don't send it.
Yeah.
Because I've
Yeah,
texted my boss before something and it said sent as text message. And then when I got back to the warehouse,
he's
he
yelling at your ass.
yeah, he had mentioned something to me and I'm like, "Didn't you get my text?" And he said, "No, not at all." And he pulled his phone out and showed me and there was nothing on his phone. And I'm like, "Oh, well, my bad. I sent it."
Like, "Look, it says send us text message."
Yeah.
He's like, "That's not good enough." Ah, damn it. Oh, man.
But yeah, that's why I sent that message that said test to make sure that it was
Yeah.
actually going through.
Yeah, because you sent me one. I don't remember what it was. You sent me something, and then I responded, but it like sent as text message back to you. I was like, "Green, huh?" And I was like, "Christina, what the fuck?" 'Cause we was at the grocery store, and she's like, "I don't know." I was like, "That's weird."
Yeah, because
And then,
the good thing about iMessage is like I can text you something, like especially here lately, like regarding the show. If I just text you something that doesn't really need a response,
yeah,
if I can see that you've read it, like I don't need to send up a follow message like, "Did you get that?"
yeah,
Like
yeah. That's a wonderful thing.
I
Yeah,
see that it says you read it. That means okay, he's seen it, and I don't need to do
yep,
anything else. On Android,
exactly.
you're like, "Hey man, what are we talking about?"
Uh,
Or I'm gonna I'm gonna release this episode at this time. You'd have to send back like okay to let me know that
yeah,
you got it.
yep, yeah. It's kind of funny that, like you said, there's like those attention to detail. That's what I'll call it. Really, I'm sure all of those companies have really great attention to detail, but it's like wrapping up or tying up all those little things makes a huge difference. Now, of course, you could turn that feature off. You don't have to have the send the read that I've read it or whatever, but
It keeps your stalkers
I think
away.
that I personally think, listen, I think that it's a wonderful feature because, like you said, there's certain things that you say that doesn't necessarily require a response, but more so that you just want me to know that you said it. And I don't necessarily need a response. If I send something to you, like I told you, I'll be on about 6 today to record. I didn't
Mhm.
expect you to respond to me, but as long as I know you read it, that's all that really mattered. So, yeah, and that's just one of many. But yeah, the cool thing about the iPhone in general, like you said, the iMessage and just all their programs really,
And I'm sure
because they
Android
have some
has this
wonderful
kind of
programs.
stuff by now. Like
No,
I haven't
they
used
don't.
it. Really?
They use the big thing is like the, like Facebook Messenger, the We app, WeChat. I don't fucking know. Like, for me, it's unusual, like Snapchat and these other things that I just don't use because 'cause I'm old or I feel old and I'm just not with it anymore, but like, yeah, what is that other I don't remember it's like WeChat or I don't know, whatever the hell it was called.
I haven't even
There's like
seen an Android phone since I last had mine. I mean, obviously
yeah, they
the S10s and the S20s are the best selling phone for a reason, so surely they got something right. That's the only
maybe
reason I made
Samsung
that
has one,
statement.
sure. WhatsApp is what I meant to say, so I don't sound like a fucking idiot over here. Um,
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp, yeah.
That's like,
It
what's that?
supposedly has end-to-end encryption and, it's supposed to be more safe than, say, a regular text messaging,
Hmm.
um, supposedly. And WeChat too. Was right about that too.
I mean, if you're talking about something that serious that you need super high encryption through a text message, you probably shouldn't be talking about it through a phone, period.
Yeah.
That's
Exa I
my play on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I get it. That's people maybe they're cheating on their wives and stuff. I don't know.
Look, man, I've seen Prison Break. You get your ass on a rowboat and you go out in the middle of a lake to where people can't listen in.
Yeah, exactly. You find a way. But yeah, apparently that's what those are the big apps for. Not I guess Android. Because I don't use them. I just basically use iMessage. I don't know. I would imagine those are more aimed towards Android and that style because besides Discord, I use Facebook Messenger for like my brother because he's the only person I know that doesn't use regular text. He has an iPhone
What's
and
your what's your daily average screen time?
it's like 6 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
Mine's 2 hours.
Well, I do play a mobile game, and that probably boosts mine a lot. If I quit playing that, it would be a lot. It would be a lot less.
Yeah,
It
see,
would
my
at least cut in half.
my most used apps are Facebook, Messages, YouTube, Safari, Spotify, and Anchor.
Yeah, I think it's well. Let's see. Loading it. I'm sorry. Loaded it
Loading,
earlier.
loading,
Um,
loading, loading. Keep that phone a loading.
all activity. Yeah, Marvel Strike Force is number one by a long shot. Like
So
today
after
in
your
particular,
so
2
after
hours.
your video game, what is your list?
Today is not a good one. Let's see. Where did you see for everything?
Click see all activity.
Oh, here I could show by the week. Okay, there we go. Flipboard, which is like my news site or whatever, which is about 3 hours for the week, and then Safari, then Discord, then Messages, and then Facebook, which I was surprised to see it up there at all, and then weather. Weather almost beat Facebook, and then Oregon Trail, which I downloaded through the Apple Arcade, which is still pretty awesome.
Yeah, I
Um,
even I even use my calculator for 17 minutes throughout the week.
Let's see. Yeah, Anchor's what gosh, I have not used Anchor nowhere near as much as you. Mine's 5 minutes for this past week. But usually there's not a lot to look at, right? Like you look
Mine's
to see
30
kind of
because I use it to see if y'all people are actually listening or not. I got eyes on you.
Yeah. But imagine trying to do never mind. I'm not gonna beat up on Android anymore. I'm sure that a lot of people when they say, "Oh, I like Android because I like the open source version of it."
Yeah, and it's man, especially in today's time, it's like it's such a sensitive topic to talk about for some people
Yeah.
because some people are just so brand loyal. Like we've probably had listeners throughout this whole show that have been like, "All right, he's talking good about Android. I can get down with this." And then I put on the brakes and said, "Android fucked up." I went to iPhone. They're like, "I'm done listening."
Well, how do you think they felt about us talking about PlayStation like 4 and 5 because we didn't even play them?
Yeah,
You know?
it is what it is. We can only talk about our own personal experiences with it. I'm not going to sit here and make up facts just to make the brand that I use look better. I can only
Yeah,
speak
yeah.
based on what I know.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we just basically know the iPhone these days. It's definitely the has been the best for us. That's all I can say. I won't say that it's better than anything because that's maybe not true. Like you said, the camera's probably better on the fancy new Samsung or whatever. I don't hardly take any pictures.
Nope. My Facebook
I
profile picture is really old. I don't change
I
them.
take a picture. But if my Facebook profile changes, it's not because of a picture that I took. I promise you. I have a wife for that.
Yeah, I'm single, so I don't have anyone to take pictures of me, which is a good thing. It saves
yeah.
people's eyes from burning.
So yeah, I think that's about it, man. You got anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap this thing up? Doesn't have to necessarily be about this particular topic, but anything in general.
Join the Discord.
It's important.
Yeah.
Um, it's my favorite app to use in terms of like any sort of communication. Buds as well. You'll probably never get me to use Twitter effectively. I've tried. I just don't like it.
Twitter would
I
work
don't.
if we had thousands of followers, but we don't, so it's
Yeah,
just
I just
the
don't
way it
like it.
is.
And I'd much rather, even if we only got 5, 10, 20. I don't care how many ever people are in there. It doesn't really matter how many's in there. I like the ability to be able to talk and communicate with everybody. Not just like Whereas on Twitter you might miss stuff. Discord doesn't really let you, which is the cool thing about Discord and the way that it's set up. So It's important. I like it. It's my favorite app to use for any sort of communication. We'll continue to throwing out random topics while we record Arrow. I guess we should do a little bit of maintenance here. We're working on it. Arrow is a lot more painstaking than we thought.
A whole
We've been
lot.
doing better. Yeah. Well, I think part of it is we didn't think we'd get that much into it again, and we have. So you don't want to miss an episode or go based strictly off memory. We want to definitely have a good basis or a good foundation for what we've watched and be able to properly communicate that. So it's taking us a lot longer than we had initially kind of thought about. So they're still coming. It's just we got season one down. It's in line to be released in a couple weeks, and you know season two will come eventually, and then so on and so forth until we either a can't make it through another season of Arrow, which is
Probably
more
season
likely,
4 or season
yeah,
3.
or well, season three at least the first half is really good because it has Ra's al Ghul.
That's
It's
what I'm saying.
wonderful.
When it starts getting
Yeah,
dumb,
Raish.
like season 4.
Yeah, the back half of season three is pretty crappy because it's about Damien Dark, but it is what it is. Season four, I think, actually starts the what's his face's beginning. What was his name? Rico? No, not Rico. What is?
No, not no. Ricardo
uh,
Diaz
Di-
was later than that.
Diaz. No, I think he starts in season four. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. We're trying to
I
talk
don't either.
about
Yeah,
this is what would happen if we tried to talk about Arrow from memory. So this is why we're watching them all. By the way,
yeah, because a lot of it we just don't remember that well,
there
or
would be
or
a
the
lot of
timeline.
dead space, and then there would be a
Yeah,
lot of no, that wasn't before that. No, maybe wait, was it? Okay, no, it was. No, it wasn't. No, yeah, no. Okay, I don't know. I'm googling it.
yep. That's what Google's for.
That would be your podcast episode on Arrow if we didn't watch them.
Yeah, it's not much fun. Not a very fun little bit. Trying to see. I'm trying to find out when he actually does come in because now I'm curious.
See, and
Um,
this would be Arrow season 4.
oh man, I can't find a good one.
Dootin' dootin' doo, Reggie.
It doesn't actually.
Because
What's annoying is it doesn't even say when he first comes necessarily.
you got to Google search it right. When was
Yeah,
Ricardo Diaz introduced?
oh, he's season 6, so I guess it wasn't season 4. So who the hell was the villain of
So
season
I
4?
was right.
You were right.
Like always, I'm always right, never wrong.
Oh, he's not until 4. Damien Dark. What the fuck, man? I'm off, man.
See, told you season 4. That's what sucks.
Season 3, then find out. I'm obviously forgetting something. Who am I forgetting here?
Because I'm pretty sure season 3 was the whole Thea and the
Oh,
Lazarus
I
pit
guess it
and all that.
is. I guess Raish is through that whole season. I felt like he was only like half the season, but maybe it was because we were watching it on.
Come on.
I felt like we were. It doesn't matter.
You don't think DC's gonna play out Ra's al Ghul like that? That's like their main bad guy.
Well, he does get played out kind of crazy though in that season. So probably season 3 will probably be the end of our run. Maybe season 4.
Yeah, and we might do an episode where we wrap up seasons 4 through 8 and wiki information.
Yeah, we've also considered just watching the crossovers, all 5 or 4, or how many ever they have for that particular crossover separately. So if, for example, I think the first crossover is in season 3 of Arrow. So instead of even considering that in that particular season, we'll watch that separately, and those will be in order, and we'll talk about that particular set of series because I think that'll be the best way to do it, right? Instead of trying to talk about because we probably won't watch Supergirl and we probably won't watch DC Legends of Tomorrow,
Nope.
but they're a part of that particular story arc. So we'd finish the whole story arc, and of course, we'd want to watch the one. What do they call it? It's not Flashpoint. What was the final one?
Crisis
Where
on
Oliver.
Infinite Earths.
Yeah. So that we'll watch that one too. I've actually never seen that one all the way through. I quit watching more or less after Ricardo Diaz is introduced, and maybe that makes me not a very good fan, I guess, or whatever. I don't know. So I never got to see Arrow die, and I put that in quotation marks. I'm sure he's really dead, but I never got to see that. So that would be fun for me to be able to watch that and talk about it. Um, because I think Stephen Amell does a great job at being Green Arrow.
Well,
It's gonna be weird not having a part of it, right?
I have seen all of the episodes of Arrow, and I won't spoil anything. Right around season, I want to say 7 or so, it goes back to prime time Arrow. Like there's a long road of downtime where it's just like, ugh, the show is heading to the hills. Like
Maybe it was 8.
how is this still on TV? And somewhere
I think
around season 7 or season 8, it was one of them two. It got
7,
ramped.
he's in prison.
Yeah, that's when it got good.
Yeah. I tried to watch through that, but I think I was just so, like, burned out by that point, I just kinda couldn't.
Yeah,
Christina kept watching, but, I was like, "Meh." That's like trying to watch through that particular season of Flash when, The Thinker's in it. I'm like, "Meh." I think
yeah.
I finished it, but I was like, "Meh."
All right, let's
We don't
wrap
fuck.
this thing up.
Yeah. So once again, thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. It's been a blast. This is like I look forward to this every single week. So I say bye bye. Bud, you got anything before you say bye bye?
Join the Discord and join the Facebook page we just made too. And thank you.
Bye.
If you made it this far, we appreciate you for listening. Once again, thanks for all the support. If you want to get in touch with us, you can follow us at our socials. Twitter would be Chris and Bud Show 1. Chris's personal Twitter would be at Deliberate88. My personal Twitter would be at BudB88. And we also just launched a Discord that's free for the public to join. You can find the Discord link through our Twitter in the show. Once again, thanks for listening, and we hope you all have a good day, and we'll see you next week.